Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you may be listening to us from on this big, beautiful planet we call Earth. This is Michael Cross here with another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions. And I hope you will find tonight's or today's program of interest to you, because I'm going to talk about something quite interesting, and that is what you can do if a narcissist is in your life. But I will warn you, I'm not going to take the normal strategy that I often see on the internet. Whenever something's said about narcissism, it is, how to basically go to war with them. And, I don't think that's necessarily possible in all situations, but I'll get into that in a moment. First, I gotta do a little plug here. If you're listening to this later on YouTube, go ahead and check down in the comments section, and I'll go ahead and pin my website where I discuss narcissism, psychopathy, political issues, mind control, all kinds of stuff. Just follow that link there, and also please subscribe to this channel. Okay? So, also, if you get a chance, if you're into science, dystopian science fiction, with a certain psychopathic element, then go ahead and check out my book. I think it's on Amazon. You can check it out. It's The Destiny of Our Past, set in the era of Noah, just before the flood. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get on with the subject here. And, I was looking through these videos that were discussing narcissism. I'm not going to name any names because I might actually get one that's actually a name of a video, and I might not have actually seen that one. But essentially, the titles referred to how to, crush or disarm or to nullify or destroy or whatever narcissist. And, that's all fine and good if you just want to let off some steam because you feel that you've been used by a narcissist, or you're trying to reach people that have been used by narcissists. But in reality, it doesn't work that way. Now, if we consider that people with the dark triad in personality, that refers to such things as a Machiavellian way of looking at life. I'm going to do another show on Machiavelli here soon. It can deal with psychopaths and narcissists. There's an overlap of these kinds of individuals, so it's difficult to really pinpoint how many there are. But I would say, through my research, that around maybe 1 in 35 people. A little higher for males, but I think that is actually because of the way we diagnose and because of our cultural constructs. That was a Freudian slip there, constraints. We tend to underdiagnose psychopathy and narcissism in women. But that, again, that's a whole topic for a whole nother show. The thing is, though, 1 in 35. That means if you go into a crowded room, 35 people, someone there is like a narcissist or a psychopath. And when I say narcissist, I'm not talking about people that just like to look at themselves in the mirror. Okay, that they maybe want to be narcissist or just vain or even histrionic, but not necessarily narcissistic. Now, I guess I should start out with a little bit of a definition first, and then go on into how you can, deal with a narcissist and even take control of the situation in a positive way. Now, narcissistic personality disorder, you can find all these checklists on the internet, pretty easy, but some of the traits are very similar to psychopathy: a very low level of empathy, low level feelings of guilt, boredom, wanting to, find excitement, a need for, stimulation, an ability to be able to twist the truth, depending on the situation and what suits them. And when I say that, I mean, I think the average person, I can't remember what the figure was, tells, it was something like, a person tells about 15 lies a day or something like that. And so everyone lies, but a narcissist and a psychopath can lie very convincingly and can shut off or turn on at a moment's notice on an issue, person, whatever. They can change really fast. They're the kind of person you think of that, they say hi to you and they're all cheerful, and then once you just take a step away, their face goes poof, right back to, rather shallow and non-expressive look. And the thing that really separates, though, the narcissist from the psychopath is the narcissist actually really cares about their image with people. They really care about how people will view them. They really care about their legacy, if they're a politician or professor or whatever. And a psychopath is not so much concerned with that, although if it benefits them, they of course want to have a good legacy and they want to be popular with people, but they don't have that weakness in their persona, where if people don't like them, they fall apart, essentially, whereas a narcissist can. Okay, that's the big Achilles heel with a narcissist. They actually care. Now, that can leave it open that you can deal with narcissists better than psychopaths. And, one of the things I kind of noticed that was kind of interesting in the in all these videos, and I've seen articles of the same nature about dealing with a narcissist, is some of the people would actually suggest bullying. Everything from silent treatment to just out and out, intentionally trying to hurt them. And, that's kind of interesting, because let's say you could do that with a narcissist and actually be quite effective. What if, I'm just throwing this out here, what if you're all like, oh yeah, my work colleague is so narcissistic, I'm going to teach her a lesson. And you start doing all these underhanded things to sabotage her. But what if she's not a narcissist? What if she is a psychopath? Okay? Then you're in for a whole new ball game, my friends. Yeah, you're in for an entirely new ball game. And to take a metaphor from The Walking Dead, that ball game may involve a baseball bat with barbed wire on it. Okay? You don't want to, you get the psychopath mad at you. And she will find a way to get back at you. She's not going to go home crying. She's not going to be going home and complaining to her husband how horrible you were and eventually quit her job. Oh, no. Quite the contrary. She's going to keep a record. And she may turn you in for some sort of work abuse. Oh, she'll keep a detailed record. So that maybe she's done things abusive to you, but you just picked at her a few times, which she cataloged, recorded, whatever. And so when she turns you into the boss or some sort of government agency for harassment, it's going to be bye-bye for you, not her. Or if she's really wanting to get revenge, she'll find ways to get revenge on you. Okay? Narcissists are not so much concerned with revenge. They're more just concerned with their image, and they will take you out if they feel that you're in their way. But a psychopath, they don't forget. And whereas maybe in a while you're not as important to them, so they may just put you to the side and ignore you. If you really start damaging them, they'll find a way to make sure that they'll mess with your family life if they have to. They'll mess with everything. So, do you really want to, if you think that your coworker is a narcissist and you're going to, make sure that you get back at her, just remember the traits of narcissism and psychopathy do overlap quite a bit. And if you've misdiagnosed, which is quite easy for a layperson, you misdiagnose and she's a psychopath, Whew, well, let's just say your imagination's the limit as to what she will do to get back at you. Now, some other things I just have to point out here, though. It's very easy if you're in a relation. You're talking to people in relationships. Oh, if your boyfriend or girlfriend is a narcissist, and you have all the evidence in the world, you think, oh yeah, definitely. I read an article about this politician, and this psychologist or something says that this politician's a narcissist, and this sounds just like my husband. Well, the problem here is going to be that it's easy to leave, at least it's easier to leave a boyfriend or girlfriend. Okay? This whole cut 'em loose. You can see that phrase so much when it comes to narcissism, where people are giving this advice. Cut 'em loose, cut 'em loose, cut 'em loose. What if the narcissist is your father and you're still living at home? Do you run away? Who would suggest that? That's stupid. What if they're your mother? Okay, there's a whole, new ball game here, isn't there? What if you're already married to, someone who's narcissistic, and, to the point that you're thinking, oh my gosh, they are diagnosable. Well, if you're married to your husband or your wife and they're narcissistic, then not so easy. You go to a judge if there's a custody battle and say, well, my husband's a narcissist. What if your judge is a narcissist? What if his wife has always said, you're such a narcissist, you've got the perfect job as being a judge, or something like that. You may have a problem there. Okay? And also you're going to destroy a family when maybe it's not necessary to destroy a family. Okay? Because, according to Freud, we marry our opposite sex parent. Okay? No, it has nothing to do with any kind of TV dramas nowadays. It has to do with the fact that we imprint the traits of our opposite sex parent. And, 98% of people, heterosexual, they're going to look for people that are similar to their ex-spouse. That's why someone gets married to someone, they're like, oh my gosh, this person's horrible. They divorce, they marry someone else, and within 6 months, I can't believe I should have just stuck with so-and-so because this person's just the same. Then they divorce them, and, they go through the whole, marriage, divorce, and they marry the same person over and over again. I've even heard of women who've been married 3 times to men, then they wind up marrying a woman, and then they're like, she's just like my ex-husband's, and stuff. So I don't think divorce is a good thing, really. Okay, last option, to be sure. But now let's say that it's your kid or kids who may have these traits and be actually so much so that they are narcissistic. Well, you obviously can't throw your kids out of the house, can you? Okay? So, and what if it's your boss? Yeah, you can quit your job. But I'll tell you something. Psychopaths and narcissists do rise to the top. Okay? Maybe some professions more than others, but they do rise to the top in many, many professions. If there's a competition, if there's glory, if there's status, if there's power, if there's any of these things, they will rise to the occasion. And, different ones of both psychopaths and narcissists are, of course, geared to different things. I mean, you may have a person that decides to be a professor who is a psychopath or a narcissist because they like the acclaim. They like the status. Versus if they went into the private sector and, with their skills, they might make twice as much money, but they wouldn't have that, the way the society says, oh, Professor Jones here, or something like that. So don't think that all psychopaths and narcissists look for these, high status, or necessarily they want to be the boss or so forth. Many of them actually, I would tend to think that if you're talking about politicians, many would be very happy just to be the advisors. because they know their weaknesses, and they might rather have someone else be the shield, whereas they're still getting lots of power, but they're not actually having to be out there in the public stage if they don't necessarily want it. Not all psychopaths and narcissists want to be, giving speeches to 100,000 people and people in the public mocking them, because about half the people are going to mock you, pretty much in the United States, no matter what your political stand is. Now, this establishes the fact that many relationships are not so easy just to throw to the side. And so therefore, you have to learn how to deal with these people. And I'm not going to so much talk about psychopaths in this sense. Although, again, every psychopath is narcissistic, whereas not all narcissists are psychopathic. Okay? It's a combination. You can be a blend of the two things, too. Now, again, as a strategy to deal with them, don't try to overpower them. Okay? It's probably not to your benefit to do that unless you're in a position that you can actually get away with it. And also, they may be valuable to your corporation. Especially the narcissist, they can make very, very good public relations people, advertisers, marketers. They can be a very good face for the company or any other institution. So often we're looking for those kinds of people for jobs that require any kind of outreach. So to just say, no, we're not going to have those kind of people, well, that might hurt your business overall. So let's look at some of the things. And the first thing I want you to keep in mind is that narcissists and psychopaths are both cognitive-based. They're not so feeling-based. Yes, they both have feelings. I would say the narcissist has a little bit more feelings, but maybe a little bit towards the young child-ish development in their personality, but they have feelings. All of them do. And I use that analogy, and I've used it before, that it's like having a Wi-Fi connection that is only reaching 1 bar, instead of 5. And you're still getting your internet, but it's pretty dang slow. So therefore, you can work with that. And again, we're going to center this on narcissist. Now, one thing that narcissists really, 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 really crave, okay? They crave what's called narcissistic supply. Okay? They crave, as opposed to psychopaths who can't, they might like it, but they may, it may not mean that much to them. The narcissist wants to be loved, adored, idolized, respected, and placed on a pedestal. They see themselves like you see those things where someone wins in some sort of sports event, and you got number 1 in the middle, and number 2 a little bit lower, and number 3 on the other side a little bit lower. And the narcissist sees themselves as being that one standing in the middle, with the medal, holding up, gold medal, not the bronze or silver. And they crave that, and therefore that is one of their biggest vulnerabilities, is they do want people to look up to them with all of these kinds of wonderful characteristics. And I'll get to that in a moment in how you can use that to your advantage. Now, first of all, I would say what not to do, and then I'm going to tell you what to do. Okay, I've already told you what not to do. Don't antagonize, don't poke at the narcissist, because, again, you might make a misdiagnosis and you wind up, instead of it being just a smug poodle, you may be poking at a Rottweiler. Anyway, ignoring, that's dangerous. And I'll tell you why that's dangerous. Let's say your wife is narcissistic and you've gone to one of these or more of these forums and it's talked about, cut their narcissistic supply and show them that you're in charge. Okay, well, you cut their narcissistic supply and their adoration and give them that kind of proverbial silent treatment. They may find someone else real quick that'll supply that particular narcissistic supply. And, they may wind up cheating on you. It's not because they necessarily want the adventure and the sex. That's kind of more into the psychopath. It is they need that adoration. And if they're not getting it from you, they'll find someone else to get it from. Okay? So you're playing with danger if this happens to be your spouse and you decide, I'll just give them the silent treatment and that'll show them. What are you going to show them? Are you trying to change their personality? Or are you just trying to antagonize? Okay? That's not going to do you any good unless you want to be sitting in a divorce court to, just basically rattle the cage just to be rattling the cage. That makes no sense. It makes zero sense, actually. Now, so that's one of the dangers you can do. Oh, ignore your boss. Good job. You may wind up, being reassigned. You find yourself, if you're a teacher and you're like, the one that always teaches the advanced classes and, like you're a mini professor or something like that to the seniors, and you start maybe ignoring your principal because you feel like, oh, he's just such a narcissistic person. I'll show him. Well, he may show you, and he may be assigned to teach the remedial class from then on. Okay, that can happen. Or if you work at another job, you may wind up working graveyard shift instead of day shift, or any number of other things. Very dangerous to ignore a narcissist. Okay. Don't reject. If you do reject, then they're probably much more able to replace you than you are to replace them. Now you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? I'm a great person. They're just a freaking narcissistic blah, 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 blah. Because the narcissist has the ability to be able to flatter and to extend a persona that will be seen as extremely attractive to people. I've seen cases where, I don't know, I'm not going to make any diagnosis, but I've seen cases where someone has, a woman has dropped a husband, not for any big reasons or anything, but just like, I just can't stand him. And she'll talk about, he's just going to be miserable. He won't find anyone as good as me. And he's got himself a wife, he's got himself within a year, a wife who's 20 years younger and is a beauty pageant winner. Okay. And then the woman's just, her head spinning around like, how the heck did that happen to you? Because a narcissist is able to sell themselves and that image that they have much better than the average person. Okay. So, I wouldn't necessarily reject the person right off. If you actually find that you have enough connected to them, maybe they irritate you, but you've got enough connected to the marriage that you don't want to lose that. Now, one thing you could do as one option, just as a human being, is to express your feelings. Sometimes when you talk to children, you use what's called a direct instruction approach. I've heard this taught in education courses, where a teacher who's got students that are being disruptive will just say, they'll say, Mary, hypothetical student, they'll say, Mary, last night I didn't get much sleep, and I'm having a little bit of problems with my car. And I'm just not I'm kind of feeling low, so this may not be the time to really disrupt class because I can't deal with it right now. Now, most students in those situations will actually oh, okay. And they'll calm down. They have empathy. Now, yeah, they might be psychopaths, but in most cases, your chances are, 98 out of 100 that they're not. But it could be that that's a good approach to use. Go to a husband and wife and say, when you do this, it kind of makes me feel this way. And it's much, and sell an idea that, like, if, maybe if I feel better, then we'll be able to have more fun together. Always give something that the narcissist will like as an exchange. Because if they're cognitive thinkers, they're going to be the kind of people who are thinking often in a cost-benefit, or to a certain degree Machiavellian way of thinking. And they're not going to do the dishes for you out of just, it's my responsibility to do the dishes, in that kind of guilt-ridden sort of thing. But if you say, hey, maybe we can watch your favorite show tonight together, but it would be nice if you could do the kitchen tonight, I'll do this, and then we'll have time to watch their favorite show. And that will appeal to the narcissist. Heck, it'll even appeal to a psychopath. And so you may feel like, well, wait a minute, this is like our marriage being one of, what would you say? What is the term for that? Bargaining and so forth. But then again, to a certain degree, all relationships are like business. All right. And maybe this is what you need to think in terms of, if you think that your husband or wife is narcissistic, or like I said, even psychopathic. It can work there too. So always show a benefit. If we get this stuff done here, then let's go to, and what their favorite activity is. Okay? Those kinds of things. And believe me, they'll do more of it. They will do more of it, and it's much better than just an argument that just leads to people being sad and hurt and so forth. And believe me, these people, the narcissists and psychopaths can be hurt too. The narcissist, it's going to bug them because they're not going to be able to understand why someone's acted this way. The psychopath is going to be, calculating as to how to get back. But again, they were, wait, what's the big deal here? Because they're going to think that everyone thinks the same way. The other thing you can use is praise and adoration. That's right. If your loved one, be they children, be they spouse, if your work associates or boss or any other number of people is narcissistic, then the best, the way to, if it's a man, the way to a man's heart is not necessarily through his stomach. It can be through flattery. So choose the things that you really do find admirable and really praise them for it. If your boss has come up with a really wonderful idea, let them know that it's a wonderful idea. Tell them that. I mean, a lot of times you're just like, okay, he came up with this or she came up with that, and you just kind of go on. But keep that line open where you're like, hey, that was pretty creative coming up with that. You see, now they're thinking, this person's giving me supply. And if they're giving me supply, I want more of it. So they may want you more in their inner circle. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's not ethical. No, that's Machiavellian strategies. And, the ends justify the means. I'm just telling you how you can deal with it, okay? And I'm not saying, just they're just such horrible people or something like that. No, they're not. But neither are you. I'm just saying, here's how you can deal with it. If you got a son who is totally rejecting everything you ever brought him up to be, then find the things he still does that you really admire, and then say, you know what, I'm so proud of you for doing this. And you will build connection, and you will have influence with him. Okay? You can have influence with your spouse. You can have influence with your boss. You can have influence with your coworker. You can have influence with anyone. If you, especially with narcissists, if you give praise. And, don't be like, you could have done this better. Oh my gosh, you want to get a narcissistic person mad at you and never help you again? Just keep on like, oh, okay, you did this and this right. Now, maybe you should, constructive criticism does not work with a narcissist or even a psychopath. It just makes them angry. And so you can word it, if you word it like, if you did it this way, it'll really benefit you. That they'll listen to. But if you're saying, hey, I've just got a little bit of constructive criticism here, so they've already shut off. They have shut off. They have, like on science fiction show, the shields have gone up and they are arming their laser systems. Okay. When you do that, there's no communication from, that's going to reach them. They are totally, the fire alarms are ringing, and you're seen as the enemy coming in for attack. Instead, you say, hey, I really liked what you did the other night. If you could do that again, I will bet, and then go on and show the benefits. They'll be taking notes. Okay? They will be taking notes. The narcissist especially. The narcissist will be taking notes. Because that's how they've gone through life, is trying to figure out, because maybe they start out a little bit awkward because they don't understand all of this, emotions and stuff like that. But they take notes on how to deal with it and how to understand it. And they become experts at how to, employing it then. And that's your best strategies. So with husband, with wife, with coworker, any of them, praise. All right? I'm not saying you give empty praise, unless, of course, you're trying to climb the corporate ladder. Your CEO is a narcissist, and you want to be his assistant. By all means, do it. But I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that ultimately, I'm talking about just regular people in regular positions. And this is something that you really can do. And also, you should try to get them to understand who you are on a personal level that they can understand. Now, I'm talking more in relationships here. You're not going to go to your boss and say, you know what kind of person I am? Because he or she doesn't really care probably, unless, you're friends with them. But when it comes to husbands and wives and so forth, if you're with a narcissist, let them know what you are, because they may not actually see it. To be honest, they have the ability to use emotions and to be able to manipulate situations, but often they know how to do it, but they don't know why. It's like, I can drive a car really well. Okay, I can get in that car. I know how to drive on ice. I know how to park it. I know how to avoid accidents. But you know what? I don't know that much about how the car works. Okay, I don't know all that much about the internal combustion engine, but I know how to use it. And that's the way a narcissist is when it comes to emotion. They know how to use it, but they don't necessarily understand it. And so sometimes if you have a spouse that's this way, and you just try to explain to them. Now, some people are going to say, well, they just don't care. They're not going to listen to you. You're setting yourself up for hurt. Well, these are people that are coming out of relationships in which they did get hurt. Okay? Not too many people put videos and go to forums and stuff and say, oh my gosh, my wife is just she just got diagnosed even as having narcissistic personality disorder, and she's so fantastic. That is not going to usually happen. Okay? It's kind of unusual. Not because it doesn't exist, but because what motivates us is anger. And so people, when they get angry at the way they've been treated by someone, and they suspect they have a personality disorder, they are going to go full force at demonizing that person with the personality disorder, and any others who have it. So if you suspect that Donald Trump is a narcissist, and you suspect your ex-husband's a narcissist, you're going to hate Donald Trump because you're going to be like, oh, that poor Melania, she's just probably just totally trapped by him. and you don't know the first thing about the relationship, but you're projecting what happened to you. So these are not good ways to learn about these disorders. The best thing is to learn what the disorder is from an objective point of view, and there's plenty of good sites for that. And then calculate if, use a little Machiavellian approach yourself. Calculate how you can reach a person with that personality. So again, if you're if you're dating someone and you totally know that they are a narcissist or even, or a psychopath, okay, probably not that much invested in them. And, I can see where you might just say, you know what, I'm just going to move on from here. Bye-bye. That sort of thing. And that's up to you. Some people don't like to do that. I've heard of people even preferring, I don't know about narcissists, but I've heard of people that have actually said, I really prefer dating psychopaths. Because, well, there's a number of things. Some people think that they're like sexual superheroes or something, or they help them break self-imposed boundaries that they may have, and they really enjoy that. So, by all means, if that's what you enjoy, you stay with the person in that sense. But if you're already married to someone or you're related to them, any number of, grandparents, parents, all these kinds of things, then it's not so easy. And so you've got to learn how to actually make the best of it. And maybe even by doing this, maybe even by employing this strategy of making the best of it, you wind up with an absolutely devoted person to you. I've even said to a narcissist, praise is like a collar on a dog. When the dog comes up to you and he's all, wagging his tail and he wants to go outside, but he's just so loving. And when you get the collar out, he's just so like, yay, the collar. And you stick that collar on and you take them outside. That dog is very happy. And again, with a narcissist, if you're giving them praise and you've given them their narcissistic supply, and not being judgmental, you may be able to pull it off. Now, there will be people, again, that will say, no. Eventually, they will bore of you. Well, isn't that true of all relationships? Isn't it true that we always get to a point where it becomes, you've been married 30 years. It's not like, oh, my gosh, I wonder what my wife's doing tonight. It's going to be so exciting, or something like that. It's usually, the person very well. And the comfort comes in, and you could do exciting things together that's different, like, I don't know, take a trip to Venezuela or something like that. Love that country for sightseeing, but I haven't been there for a long time, especially with the turmoil down there now. But, you could do those kinds of things to increase the relationship. But all relationships, all of them, no matter what, people will start feeling this sort of, okay, yeah, they can still be the passion, but it's not that infatuation, heart racing when you see them type of thing. And the same is true for people with narcissism. There could be a situation where you're not giving all of that narcissistic supply that they want, and that's not your fault. Okay? Whatever they do after that is their fault. I would not say go after this as some sort of battle. Okay? Go at it lovingly. Not to destroy someone. And you could very well, depending on the way they're raised, have someone who can be very loyal to you. Even psychopaths can be loyal. It's just that the guilt of not being loyal is not going to be there, and all those other traits make it a little harder. But if they are, they could be, again, I've used this analogy before. You got the crocodile there, the crocodile mother. It's a reptile. It's got a little itty bitty brain. Okay, it's not going to like cuddling. Okay, they don't like It's not like some sort of children's movie where everyone just cuddles and hugs and everyone loves each other, and in reality they eat each other. Okay? A crocodile is not exactly a cuddly sort of creature, but it will protect its young to the death. Okay? Now, of course, when the young are a little older, it might actually eat them. But at first, when those young are young, its instinctive drive is to protect. And you can get that in all human beings. It's just a little harder with narcissists and psychopaths. But it is, if it does exist, it's going to be extremely strong. Okay? But it's going to be on their terms, ultimately. Anyway, I encourage, if you hear this on YouTube later, I would encourage commentary, your own experiences. Are you a psychopath or a narcissist? I put some videos up, very interesting when I get people respond. I put one up, how does a psychopath see the world? It's in my YouTube playlist. And some people will go on there and say, yeah, I'm psychopathic and this describes me. This is how I see the world. And there's other people that are like, oh, psychopaths, they should be, whatever. And very interesting debates and discussions there. But ultimately, that's fun. That's how we learn, discussing things and finding out where maybe we don't know as much as we thought, or maybe the other person doesn't know as much as they thought. And that's true debate. Okay? Argument, you're just going in there to bash, and you don't intend on getting anything out of it. But debate, it should be something where each person learns something from it. What I would like to deal with at this moment, and I've dealt with this topic before, but it bears repeating, and that is the relevance of Freud today. And what I would like to do is deal with the aspect of why a knowledge of Sigmund Freud's works on the subconscious as well as defense mechanisms can help people to be able to combat and resist societal pressure to conform and to be led through manipulation. And before I go on with that particular concept, I would note that you don't have to be a total adherent to all of Freud's theories. I'm certainly not. But there are things that he did get right. And they had a profound insight into. And so we need to keep these things in mind, because that the whole notion of knowing thyself, that is something we need to keep in mind, and we need to integrate that thought into our very being, that we need to know how we think. We need to know how we react to things. And if we don't know that, yes, we're going to be manipulated by the people who do have the knowledge, who do know how we think, what our instinctive drives are, what our insecurities are, what our hopes, dreams, and desires ultimately rest upon. Because there are people that work 24/7 to be able to figure out how to market things to you. Not just how to sell you a bar of soap, not just how to get you to vote for someone, but how you should actually behave in your life choices. And that can include marriage, that can include your views on your heritage, it can include views on fertility and so forth. Okay? We are subjected, as Edward Bernays, who was, Freud's nephew, did say, we are subjected to the values, manners, and basic taste that have been drilled into us by those who have the power, those who control the TV networks, the foundations, the people who control the education systems, especially higher education. And believe it or not, this is not a very diverse crowd. Okay? It's not a diverse crowd. Many of these people have gone to the same universities, they hang out in the same social circles, and therefore they have a particular groupthink that says this is the way society should be run. Okay? It's most of the things you see around you and you're going, wow, why are people suddenly starting to do this or feel this way? That is not organic. That is something that has been planted within the society. That scene in 1984 where Winston is being coerced to finally agree that 2 + 2 = 5. I don't think it really needs that much coercing. I really don't. I think ultimately the average person wants to fit in. And just going back to the Solomon Asch studies where he had lines on a board and then a person would come in and they would conform to the group even though they knew that not all the lines were equal. They would see one line that was way shorter or way longer, and they'd go along with it. As long as no one else challenged it, they would go along. And our society is increasingly fractured, in which we don't have community anymore. A lot of people don't go to church anymore. We have less people getting married. So we don't have this kind of social structure in which people can say, hey, wait a minute, the emperor really doesn't have clothes on. Okay? So we just kind of go along with whatever people are saying at work or whatever people are saying in the media. And that's not good. Freud recognized that humans are very insecure creatures. They are tribal. They want to fit in. Fitting in gives you benefits. In the old days, it was survival, but even today, fitting in can make the difference. If you're a loner, you have less chance of meeting someone, getting married, passing on your genes. If you're a loner, you don't have as much networking possibilities, so you may not get the jobs you want or find out what's going on. And so, in a fractured society, the powers that be have way more power over you. Okay? Community, which a lot of people, the society brainwashes you to believe that belonging to church and doing these kinds of things is a form of brainwashing. It's the opposite way around. I'm sorry. It's the opposite way around. People who are part of a functioning social entity are more likely to stand up against the society if those values of the entity and the dominant paradigm of the state or culture come into conflict. Now, Freud's views, okay, when it comes to defense mechanisms and the conscious and the subconscious mind, are extremely important. And while a lot of people will discount the idea of the ego, id, and superego, not understanding that it was metaphorical. He didn't think that there was a chunk of the brain that was the ego and a chunk that was the superego. That's false structuralism, usually presented by people that have never really even studied Freud. You see, Freud is conservative. Oh, people are going, what? What do you mean? How can he be conservative? He's always preoccupied with sexual themes. And of course, in our society, we believe that conservatism and sexuality and these kinds of things are antagonistic to each other. Well, not really. Freud only provided a framework by which sexuality would be, at one point, repressed and another point expressed. Okay? He was not someone who just saw sexuality as being an unimportant thing or sinful or whatever. It was just more convenient to repress sexual desire so that the society could function. And he was also extremely conservative in his views that what should be the ideal is for people to get married and have families. Okay? Very much conservative. And that's the reason why he's despised. But on many college campuses, you see what's going on with the mood on many college campuses today. If you disagree with a certain viewpoint, you're suddenly evil. And we see people actually using terms such as evil or good, which in an academic setting, that should not be the case. It should, you can go in and disagree, you can debate issues, but, we're getting to it's almost like a religion now. And Freud is not part of that religion. Okay? He wasn't terribly religious in the first place, but he surely wasn't part of that religion. And so what's happening is that they look upon his basic ideas, and they see them as just basically supporting this, what would I say, a patriarchal, traditional family structure. And I guess in that sense, he pretty much does. Although he goes into a lot more detail about the instinctive animalistic functions it performs. I mean, that's very much like another controversial science on American campuses today, and that would be evolutionary psychology, which would say that we have traits in the human species that are based on what helped our ancestors reproduce. And those who did not have those traits and did not display them did not reproduce, and therefore their genes did not go into the future. But anyway, I don't want to go into evolutionary psychology so much, although there is a certain overlap with Freud. People need to understand the concepts of his views of the conscious and the preconscious and the subconscious mind. Because then you get to see how the society itself turns those values upside down. How it will say that we should not repress, but at the same time, we'll take those values that he did associate with the higher values, the desire to build a society, to sublimate the instinctive drives into things that would build what we consider, in our area, Western civilization. And that's turned around. It's turned around to where people know, people have reversed that. And that's not by accident, because ultimately, I think the default for people is tradition. I think people actually find comfort in marriage. I think people ultimately find comfort in raising families, children, and so forth. So what the powers that be have done is actually make those things undesirable, and hope that people will at least be distracted long enough through at least their fertile years that they will not value those things, and they will instead repress the instinctive drives in a way that Freud did not believe they should be. Okay? It's sublimating the positive desires and instincts. And this is not going to be good for society. We already see it. Are people happier today? Oh yeah, we've progressed past Freud and his views on the conscious and the subconscious and the inner turmoils that take place, and ultimately the choices that we make in life, and the either happiness or anxiety that follows. Oh, we've progressed past that. Oh, have we? Have we? Take a look at depression rates today, anxiety, panic attacks amongst children receiving panic attacks, situations in which people are no longer feeling that they belong anymore. Isolation, loneliness, and on these kinds of things are only expected to increase in the future. Okay? It is our, this whole idea of going away from the psychoanalytic model and the humanistic model and going into algorithms and checklists, which became very popular to a certain degree as an offshoot of game theory back in the 1970s and early 80s, to where you thought you could categorize so easy, with using checklists, and then you didn't have to deal with you wouldn't have to deal with the aspects of intuition where you were thinking, okay, this psychologist is going to examine this person, talk to them, and be able to help them through troubling times. We threw this kind of intuition either away or just pushed it to the side. Now we have a pharmaceutical model that says, oh, you scored 37 on a 40 test for such and such disorder or condition or ailment or whatever, and then now we can treat the symptoms. Now, in fairness, most psychologists and psychiatrists would say you have to have a combination. But I think we have sort of put the emphasis now on biochemical sorts of treatment and not so much you could say it's uncertain, but at the same time it seems to work better. So are we really healthier, in a sense, since the pharmaceutical model seemed to win over, since the categorize and then label and file this disorder became popular? I don't think so, ultimately. But what I do think is, again, that people should start examining the Freudian model. Now, again, I'm not so much... I have to warn you, a lot of this stuff's metaphorical, okay? If he says something about the oral stage of development, it doesn't mean it's so fixed that all he was thinking about was what touches your lips. He was talking about a metaphorical process by which what was going on during that time period can influence how you will deal with life and its uncertainties later on. The same true of the Oedipal and later what he called the electrocomplex. These are metaphorical and not necessarily set in stone, but they give us insights into the human psyche that can still be quite valuable, and especially since they do go against the prevailing media powers that be ideals. Maybe there's something to them that you can learn from, some of that hidden knowledge. I'm just encouraging people to at least check it out and see where maybe a knowledge of these processes can help people remain as individuals in an increasingly conformist society. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and that ends our edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions. Take care now.
Ozzy Skateboard, and you're listening